Here's a further pictorial report of the sinking of the USS Lexington in the Great Battle of the Coral Sea. A dramatic movie camera record which reveals for the first time the death struggle of the 33,000-ton aircraft carrier. With smoke and flames spouting from the carrier, more than 2,000 of her crew abandoned ship.
The search team discovered the USS Lexington with its guns, aircraft, and other equipment in remarkably good condition. It sank in 1942, more than 500 miles off the coast of Australia during the Battle of the Coral Sea.
For 76 years, the USS Lexington was lost, somewhere in the deepest, darkest part of the Pacific Ocean. Every search mission failed, and every expedition came back empty-handed, while the greatest aircraft carrier of World War II had simply disappeared, taking her secrets with her into the abyss. Then, in 2018, a billionaire's underwater drone descended 10,000 feet into absolute darkness and captured footage that made hardened naval experts break down crying. What they saw was impossible. Aircraft sitting on the ocean floor like they had just landed, with paint still bright and kill markings still visible, as if time had stopped the moment they hit the water. This is the story of the most incredible underwater discovery in history. Paul Allen had been obsessed with finding the Lexington for years, because the Microsoft billionaire had already discovered some of the most famous shipwrecks in history. But Lady Lex haunted him like no other vessel. She was the holy grail of World War II wrecks, the first American aircraft carrier sunk by enemy action, and the ship that changed naval warfare forever.
After successfully weathering attack after attack by Jap dive bombers, internal explosions finally spell her doom.
The search zone was massive, covering hundreds of square miles of Pacific Ocean, more than 500 miles from the Australian coast. The water was so deep that pressure would crush a human body instantly, with temperatures just above freezing and total darkness that stretched down like searching for a needle in a haystack the size of Texas. Allen's research vessel RV Petrel carried technology worth millions of dollars, including sonar systems that could map the seafloor in impossible detail, and underwater robots that could dive deeper than Mount Everest is tall. The cameras could see in pitch black water 2 miles down, but for months, they found nothing, except empty ocean floor and endless mud. The Lexington remained lost, just like she had been for 76 years, and some experts started whispering that maybe she would never be found, because maybe some ships were meant to stay lost forever. Then, on March 4th, 2018, everything changed in a way that no one could have predicted. 8 a.m. Pacific time, the underwater drone was making another routine pass across the seafloor when something appeared on the monitors that made everyone in the control room freeze in absolute silence. A massive shadow was emerging from the darkness, too big to be natural and too straight to be a rock formation. Then they saw it, the unmistakable outline of an aircraft carrier flight deck, sitting upright on the ocean floor, as if it had just sailed there yesterday, instead of crashing through 2 miles of ocean 76 years ago. But that wasn't the unbelievable part, because as the drone moved closer, they could see the ship's name painted on the stern, reading Lexington, and still readable after 76 years underwater. The carrier had broken apart during her 2-mile fall to the bottom, but instead of being scattered wreckage, she looked like a museum display, with the main section sitting perfectly upright, while the bow and stern rested nearby, like pieces of a giant puzzle. Then, the drone's cameras captured something that made experienced naval historians start crying. Something that shouldn't exist, and was impossible according to everything they knew about the ocean's destructive power on metal and machinery. Aircraft were scattered around the wreck site, dozens of them sitting on the seafloor, like they were parked on a carrier deck, waiting for their next mission. What they found next broke every rule of underwater preservation, because 11 World War II aircraft lay scattered around the Lexington, all in condition that was scientifically impossible. The paint was still bright, markings were still clear, and they looked like they had crashed yesterday instead of 76 years ago, during the most important naval battle of the Pacific War. 7 TBD Devastator torpedo bombers represented the rarest aircraft discovery in the world, because not a single example existed anywhere on Earth. Museums had searched for decades, trying to find just one piece of a Devastator. And now, here were 7 complete aircraft sitting in the Pacific like a private air show, preserved in time. But the crown jewel was an F-4F Wildcat fighter that made grown men weep when they saw it, because fuselage number F5 from Fighting Squadron 3 bore 4 Japanese kill markings painted under the cockpit, representing 4 enemy planes shot down by this pilot. There, clear as day, was the famous Felix the Cat insignia of VF-3. The cartoon cat holding a bomb and grinning back at the camera after 3/4 of a century on the ocean floor. The paint was perfect, with bright blue on top and gray underneath, exactly like it was supposed to be when the aircraft rolled off the production line. Red and white striped rudder panels looked like they had just been painted, while the national insignia with its red center was so clear you could read every detail from the drone footage. This was impossible, because saltwater destroys everything metal, paint dissolves, and fabric disintegrates. After 76 years underwater, these aircraft should have been unrecognizable piles of rust. But instead, they looked like they had just been pulled from a World War II museum display. The Lexington's weapons were still in fighting position 76 years after her crew abandoned ship, because 5-inch anti-aircraft guns remained trained skyward, as if still tracking phantom Japanese dive bombers. 8-inch guns sat in their turrets, with blast shields intact while ammunition hoists were frozen in position, where crew members had been loading rounds during the final battle. The preservation extended to details that should have been destroyed decades ago. Because gunsight mechanisms remained intact, electrical conduits showed where power cables had connected fire control systems, and even spare parts boxes were found in perfect condition. The ship's island structure containing the bridge and flight control had broken away during the sinking, but remained largely intact with ladders and walkways visible exactly as they appeared in the original construction plans. The wreck revealed exactly how the Lexington had died, because aviation gasoline vapors from improperly drained fuel lines had ignited, causing a series of explosions that could not be controlled. The damage patterns visible on the underwater footage matched eyewitness accounts from survivors, who described the internal explosions that sealed the ship's fate on May 8, 1942. Among the most poignant discoveries was a Mark 15 torpedo lying near the wreck, one of the weapons fired by the USS Phelps to scuttle the Lexington after her crew had been evacuated. The torpedo's presence confirmed the final chapter of the carrier's story, when American forces deliberately sank their own ship to prevent Japanese capture, rather than let her fall into enemy hands. Paul Allen's discovery was only possible because of revolutionary deep-sea exploration technology that pushed the boundaries of what humans could achieve in the deepest parts of the ocean. The RV Petrel carried equipment originally developed for offshore oil exploration and adapted for archaeological research, including multi-beam sonar systems that mapped the seafloor in high resolution, and side-scan sonar that detected anomalies indicating shipwrecks. The Remus 6000 AUV served as a force multiplier that systematically surveyed vast areas of ocean floor before transmitting data to the surface, operating at crushing depths where human divers would be instantly killed. The autonomous vehicle captured video footage that revealed details invisible to surface-based sensors, while the ROV technology allowed real-time exploration of the wreck site with high-definition cameras and powerful lighting systems. Allen's personal motivation drove the technological advancement because, as the son of a World War II veteran, he understood the historical significance of these discoveries. His expeditions had previously located the USS Indianapolis, USS Ward, Japanese battleship Musashi, and Italian destroyer Artigliere, creating an unprecedented record of World War II naval archaeology that honored the memory of those who fought and died in the Pacific theater. The images transmitted to the surface were so clear that historians could read squadron markings and identify individual aircraft, while the visual evidence provided closure for families who had wondered about their loved ones' final moments for over 7 decades. The Lexington discovery revolutionized everything experts thought they knew about deep-sea preservation and World War II naval history, because the aircraft found on the seafloor provided the first intact examples of TBD devastators for future study and potential recovery. Aviation historians finally had access to complete aircraft, rather than fragments and photographs, while the preservation quality challenged every assumption about saltwater corrosion and deep-sea deterioration. The discovery's impact extended beyond archaeology to family connections and national memory, because descendants of Lexington crew members finally had a location to honor their relatives' sacrifice. Admiral Harry Harris head of U.S. Pacific Command and son of a Lexington survivor, noted the profound significance of finally locating the ship where his father had served during the war. Plans emerged for potential aircraft recovery, with particular focus on the TBD Devastators that represented aviation history's missing link, though the technical challenges and costs remained enormous. The Military Aviation Museum announced webinars and presentations about possible recovery operations, while emphasizing the historical significance of preserving these aircraft for future generations. The emotional impact of seeing these aircraft after 76 years created a direct connection to the Battle of the Coral Sea and its participants. Because unlike museum displays or historical recreations, these were the actual aircraft flown in combat by specific pilots whose names and stories were documented in squadron records. The Lexington discovery represented more than successful underwater archaeology. It was a technological achievement that honored the memory of those who fought and died in the Pacific theater, while proving that major World War II sites remained undiscovered, despite decades of searching. The carrier's crew had sacrificed their ship to prevent Japanese capture, never knowing that their story would be completely preserved on the ocean floor, for future generations to discover and remember their courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.